Hello, I want to thank you all for joining the webinar today. I see that people are still joining, so we want to give it another minute or two before we get started. And we do appreciate your time today. Hopefully it will be a very valuable session, and you will get some good information out of it. So thanks again. Give us another minute or so, and we'll go ahead and get started. Well, I want to take a moment to first of all thank you all for joining. We still see a couple of people still joining, but in the interest of your time, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce you to Brent McCormick from SailPoint. Brent.
Hey, Pat. Hi, everyone. Hey, thank you for attending today. Excited to talk to you all today. My name is Brent McCormick. I am an SE with SailPoint, been with SailPoint for about 7 years. Working in the industry for 30 plus years, specifically around identity and access management type of solutions. So pleased to be here. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Brent. And I'm Pat Figley from Splan. We've got a pretty good agenda today. We've done some introductions. We want to talk about business challenges, particularly where we want to integrate both logical and physical access identities. So again, with the integration we're going to discuss today, we've got this seamless integration. It is certified, and and we're really excited to be working so directly with SailPoint on this. So if you're a SailPoint customer, you can expand the identity and access management capabilities from across the logical now into physical and stay in the same user interface. The integration really gives you a comprehensive view of a single identity's access across both logical and physical. So we're going to go down through some of the challenges. We're going to talk about the SailPoint identity and access management as well. And then we're going to talk about the integration, and then we'll end with some Q&A. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section, and we will address them at the end of the meeting. So again, if you have questions, we love questions, so we're really happy to address them after the meeting. But thank you. So what are some of the business challenges, right, with identity and access management? So first of all, you want to make sure that the access that somebody is given is what they should have. They shouldn't have access to things that they don't need. And that's across both logical and physical. But when you think about it, the CFO should have access to the general ledger file, but an accounting clerk should not. The security director should have access to a server room, but guess what? The other people, the accounting clerk again, should not. So you want to make sure that people have both the logical and physical access that they should have for their role in the organization, and not extra access and not missing access. Also, what you want to do is make sure that all of the badges and access outstanding is accounted for. We've talked to customers where they have 500 employees. They've got 1,000 badges outstanding. Where are those other 500 badges? Who has those, and why are they outstanding? You want to, every company is in business to make a profit, right? That's the nature of our system. And so what you want to be able to do is do things in an efficient manner, affordable and also efficient. You also want to save time. So for example, if you've got people and you're trying to grant access to them, you hire an employee or a contractor. You don't want them to have to wait a few days to get that access. Basically, they should have that access as fast as possible in order to be able to work, do their job, and provide, their productivity for the organization. And then finally, you want to basically give access based on a designated responsibilities and need to know, right? Again, going back to, back to the point that only somebody should have the access that they should have. And also the people granting that access should have the authorization to grant access. What you don't want maybe is, say, a guard at a gate giving physical access to a contractor who's coming in that they don't even know. So you want to make sure that when you're granting access or creating badges and things like that, the people doing that are responsible for it. So I'm going to turn it over to Brent right now to talk about, SailPoint logical and physical challenges. Brent?
Hey, thanks, Pat. So when we think about SailPoint, of course, we're a vendor that's been around for many years. Since 2007, we really kicked off and started out with an offering that we've had in the market, still have in the market, called Identity IQ. We really kind of were pioneers in starting the governance space with really, what are the controls that you want to have around governing who has access to what? And Identity IQ paved the way there. About a decade in, we started to look at things a little differently, and we realized the cloud was coming in a big way, and we started investing heavily back then. And so instead of just doing a lift and shift of our technology, we started from the ground up and wrote what today is the leading cloud solution around identity security, which includes governance capabilities and protections against cyber threats, etc. When we look at the applications, enterprise applications that SailPoint supports, you see quite a list of enterprise applications. One of the challenges that you have, though, is that SailPoint has never provided an out-of-the-box connector for badge systems. And the reason for that is we haven't seen a clear leader. There's a lot of vendors there. It's very fragmented. And it can be a challenge, to make that commitment. Now, typically, we don't charge for our connectors either. Our connectors are out of the box. When we have an out-of-the-box connector, we are committing to maintaining that connector throughout all the versions that are future versions planned for that vendor. So when you see us have integrations and connections to Workday and to Active Directory and Azure AD or Entra ID now, as it's called, and AWS and Google, etc., connections to all of those environments, including, cloud infrastructure, being able to help with governance programs around that. But, this out on the edge has, been the badge systems, and we have not invested. So I'm really excited to have Splan here, who has invested and created, and now there is an option where you can have an integration that we're going to get into. So one of the challenges that customers will have is they can go ahead and create a connector on their own, and there's a variety of ways they can do that badge connector. But it's going to fall on them to keep that badge integration system up to date. So anytime new versions roll out, it'll be on that customer to figure that out. And the variety of connections can be through a database. Some badge systems will have APIs. Some will not have any APIs, be closed, and a flat file might be the way that you can get in and out of that system. So it varies greatly on the integration options that you have. So good summary on some of the challenges that we see there. Pat, next slide, please. If you look at SailPoint being a recognized leader, again, a pioneer in governance, back in 2007 when we really kicked off, and really been recognized as that leader ever since, and just charging forward and being a visionary for what customers are needing to do in this identity security, identity and access management space. So clearly you see us, and one of my favorite awards we have is the Gartner Peer Insights, where customers, it's not the analyst just saying, hey, here's our deep assessment, which can vary wildly. It is, customers coming back and saying, hey, here's been our experience with this particular vendor. And really proud of that, really proud of our retention rate. that we experience. Next slide, please, Pat. When we think about what has made SailPoint's identity security platform so popular, just think about the problems that you're faced with. So these problems aren't getting less complex, they're getting more complex. And that's because the number of, I'm going to call them permissions, entitlements, meaning the same thing, depending upon the enterprise application that we're talking about. So, it could be group membership giving you access. It could be T codes in an SAP system giving you access. It could be an access level in a badge system giving you access. You think about taking the number of identities, the number of entitlements, the number of unstructured data sources that you have, and the permissions possible on those unstructured data sources. I'm talking about spreadsheets, I'm talking about Word documents, I'm talking about repositories for all of that, whether it's cloud or on-premise. And you look at those combinations of access points, and it's very easy for small organizations to be in the billions of combinations for access. This is not available for human capacity any longer. It's taking AI and machine learning to help with looking for patterns and seeing where there are issues and problems with access, whether that's toxic combinations of access, whether it's why does one person look so different from others in the organization. We have patented something called outlier risk scores. So automatic, what you get, is an ability to assess based on AI and machine learning algorithms and calculations on who are the folks that look way different from other folks and why do they look so different. And an auditor can go in, drill down, and see the reasons for the risk score. There's no work on the part of the folks maintaining the system. It's part of what the cloud service provides for you. Also, with modeling of access, what are some appropriate birthright roles to have? What are some appropriate levels of access that folks should have? Being able to model and use AI to come up with and to help maintain the roles. That's the biggest challenge, is that they get stale over time, and AI can help us with modeling and keeping those fresh and keeping the entitlements that go into a role accurate over time, even as the organization evolves and changes the applications that come and go, and HR reorganizes and has different roles in the organization. All of that can be successfully managed within this platform itself. So giving you the ultimate control there, also giving you the ability to define workflows and extending the environment per your business requirements and your use cases. Next slide, please, Pat. We have announced something called SailPoint Atlas. SailPoint Atlas is our vision and our base platform. So whether you're getting Identity Security Cloud Standard, Business, or Business Plus, that's kind of a packaging of the software. This overall is a architecture of what are you getting with that package of the software? Well, you're getting the ability to provide a data model that goes across your organization to many, many different types of systems. Right. And now with Splan, we can have one of those systems can be your badge systems, and it can be a maintained connection that you'll know that you're going to have future-proofed access to your badge systems simultaneously. Then on top of that integration, we have a policy layer to help with managing policies that can be defined for who gets access to what. And that's across the board with, birthright or joiner, mover, leaver capabilities. It's also the ability to, have the roles that are provided just part of your birthright access. It also has the ability to make recommendations around new access that users should get based on AI and ML calculations for what we see as access that would be recommended towards their job functionality, their role, and the peers that they work with. And when we're talking about the types of functionality, kind of the top layer here where you see all the icons around the top, These are components that are included in the different bundles out there, standard business or business plus, that bring in capabilities. So for example, being able to have lifecycle management, access modeling, and to be able to do reviews of access on a regular basis are all parts of what you expect from an identity security program, and that's what SailPoint brings to the table. One of the newest additions we have here is called activity data, where now activity data for any enterprise application, if there are APIs for that activity data, that can also be brought in and included not only in the reviews that are taking place, but in the AI calculations, making recommendations perhaps for getting folks to least privileged access, so that if they're not using a system, why allow them to have access to it if they haven't used it in 30, 60, 90 days, that sort of thing. And then, of course, on the very top layer is doing this for all your workforce. That is an overview and how we go to market to help you understand this, what SailPoint brings to the table. Pat, you going to dive us in a little bit deeper now on the challenges?
Yes, thanks very much. I'm going to do that. So with the integration, right? First of all, you're getting to extend everything that Brent said brings a lot of value to customers. Okay, really from a governance perspective, from an access management, an identity access management perspective, birthright policies, all of that, and that's all in logical. But with the integration, you're going to get to extend that now to the physical access. So it extends your joiner, mover, leaver scenarios to new access requests for physical, all within the same user interface. Basically, it streamlines the certification access reviews as well. What you want to do, what a company wants to do is recertify access on a regular basis. What you try to stay away from is, as Brent mentioned, somebody have an access that they haven't used, that they never use, right? So you want to recertify that. Also, as people move through the organization, they're maybe with the organization 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. What you get is what's called access creep. And you're always adding access, but who takes that access away so that if they've got access that they don't need, it's still there. So we could do recertifications from a badging and a physical perspective now as well. The identity lifecycle management is basically, more efficient. Your access requests can be automated. And when you talk about access requests, we're talking about not only the ability for approvers, right? So you've got certain rooms, right? And each room, or like maybe a server room, has an approver, a room owner, right? And this happens in organizations where you've got different areas that certain people have to approve. Well, instead of when I get a new employee and he's going to have this particular role that needs access to that room, I shouldn't have to call somebody up and say, hey, I've got this new employee, can you grant access? What I want to do is request that access, key in some notes, obviously why they need that access, have that notification automatically go to the approver, and then have the approver approve it so that that badge can now be issued with those access levels on it. And again, what we're doing is we're combining both the logical as well as the physical. The segregation of duties is really important. It's important in different, compliance requirements, segregation of duties, and then also, basically from a security perspective as well. You want to make sure that, that certain permissions that shouldn't be granted at the same time to somebody are not granted, whether it's from a physical perspective and then also from a logical perspective as well. And so this now will include that physical access when you are doing the segregation of duties. And again, you've got, compliance, you've got recertification, all of this is combined, not only logical access, but also physical access. You want to make sure that you are in compliance with regulations. Basically, you're secure also. So in other words, it's really important to make sure that you are secure from a physical perspective, and you've got to address the entire life cycle of badging from a security perspective, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. And then, of course, now you can combine everything into one workflow, both both logical and physical identities in one place, from a provisioning standpoint, from a viewing standpoint, see who has what access, from a recertification standpoint, all of that. Brent, did you want to add anything to that? So what is the unified badging platform from Splan? Splan now has a unified badging and identity platform for physical access. Again, this is going to be, you're going to be able to go through granting access and removing access and recertification of access through the SailPoint interface. But what happens is you've got a complete workflow from a joiner, mover, leaver. So somebody comes on board, right? And what you want to do is give them the access for their role. So you can take a feed, right? And basically what happens is you're going to take this feed, it's going to come in, and you're going to, based on their role, you're going to maybe recommend certain physical access. And again, you're going through the SailPoint interface to do this, to do all of this, but you're recommending the physical access. And now what happens is it goes through that approval process where people need to approve it. And now that access is granted so that somebody will get a notification that says, hey, your access is ready, your badge is ready, please come and pick it up. Or if you want to do mobile credential, they can get it on their phone, whatever, right? So that's the new hire. You've also got, movers, job change, right? Somebody changes roles in a company. Well, now they're going to need a different set of access, not just new access, but a different set of access, meaning you not only want to grant new access, but you want to remove access that they no longer need. And that's really important. And then termination is important. If somebody is terminated for cause, you want that badge to be deactivated immediately. You don't want to give them an opportunity to come back with their badge and be able to get into any areas and then disrupt your operations. So again, that badge, if they're terminated for cause, it has to be an immediate removal of access. If they've given their notice, maybe 2 weeks out, then what you really want to do is set it up in the system. This person's leaving in 2 weeks, and at that point in time, it gets deactivated. So all of this for physical access is going to happen within the platform because we're basically connecting with all of the different access control systems. And Splan connects with about 20 different access control systems out there, whether it's Lenel, Genetec, Vigilon, Brevo, AMAG, Secure, all these access control systems. So we're doing all of this. And then also you've got temporary access. How often do people show up, they forgot their badge, they lost their badge, their dog ate their badge, whatever. And they need temporary access, but they want that temporary access to match what the permanent access is. So this temporary badge that they receive has to be a mirror image of their permanent badge. And again, that can be executed through the platform as well. Now Splan has been known in the past, and we've been in business for about 10 years, right? We've got customers all over the world. We've got many, many global customers as well as local customers. And they're in different verticals such as healthcare, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, utilities, all different verticals. And again, large, very, very large customers where you've got, maybe 100 locations, right, globally. Or we've also got small customers. We've got single location customers because it is a very easy system to use. So we extend over to visitor management. We also have desk booking, from a workspace management perspective, or some people call it hoteling, right? Mustering, which becomes really important when you have a situation where you've got an emergency situation, you're broadcasting out a message, but you want people to go to a mustering site. You send them to the mustering site, check them in there, and it checks them out of where they were before. So when first responders show up, they can see who's left in that building, right? Very, very important. They want to know who's left in the building, and that's what mustering gives you, that capability. Also multi-tenant. We work with a number of property management companies who have multiple tenants in their buildings, or even healthcare. I was met yesterday with a healthcare company that has tenants. They've got clinics. The clinics are separate organizations, so they are multiple tenants within that healthcare organization. package delivery, truck management, queue management. We've got a number of applications that we extend this over to as well. But primarily today, we're talking about physical badging and this integration with SailPoint, so you can go through the whole SailPoint interface and go through the joiner, mover, lever, get the correct access levels provision to a badge. So let's talk about the integration for just a minute. So basically, Splan is going to take a feed from SailPoint, and then as you can see, and that feed will be, an identity. That identity is approved access. All right, approved access levels going to come to Splan. Splan connects with the access control systems, whether it's Lenel, Genetec, Avigilon, Brevo, AMAG, Secure. Really, I think about 20 different access control systems that Splan has connectors and integrations with. They're bidirectional integrations. So basically, we are provisioning, and again, if we are going to issue a temporary badge, we're gonna understand what access somebody already has. Okay, and then we're feeding that information back into SailPoint. So this is primarily how the integration from a high level. Again, this is not a technical slide, but from a high level perspective, this is what it is. The
Hey, Pat.
integration. Yeah, Brent, go ahead.
Just there is a question. So Randy asks, are there any packs which will not integrate with SailPoint Splan? So this is a good overview on what is there. So keep in mind with SailPoint side of the house, right now it's a single connector. It's a web services connector. And that connector will, there's certification programs for that connector. Their Splan is certified for Identity IQ and is working on Identity Security Cloud for that. If you want it certified, you would need to understand which SailPoint system you're using. Then that workstation, that web services connector would integrate. On the Splan side, that's where all the magic happens in terms of staying up with the latest integration options, right? And so the methodology that can be used for integrating on the Splan side varies depending upon the badge system that we're talking about. So I think it's probably best to have maybe Pat answer if there's a badge system that's not listed here and you want it to be integrated, what does that process look like, Pat, to bring in a badge system?
So Splan has an open API, right? And we connect with many, many systems. So, and occasionally we get a request from a customer, hey, I've got this other access control system, right? Yeah, and that's when we build a new connector. And as long as that access control system has an API and the ability to connect, we are able to connect with it. I don't think we've been asked to connect with any systems that we haven't been able to. So you can see systems here that are really midpoint security, right? Other systems that are not really in the general market, but we've been requested. Hey, we need a connector to that system because we run that system, and basically we build those connectors within about 2 to 4 weeks. It takes us to connect to a new access control system. But the thing is, the interesting thing about the founders of the company and myself, right? We have a lot of background in access control and physical access control. So not only from a security perspective, but also from a use case and a business perspective, right? Understanding physical access is really important because you can build a connector, but if it doesn't meet all the use cases that you need to meet when you've got physical access control, it's not going to work completely. So with the background that we have in working with different access control systems and working with provisioning access to badges previously, which we've been able to do for visitors, for contractors, for employees, then we can build a connector to a new access control system relatively quickly. As I said, about 2 to 4 weeks. That help? Brent?
Yeah, that's good, Pat. Thank you. I don't see any other questions, but I thought that one was kind of timely on this slide. So we'll kind of pause on questions until we get the rest of the way through.
Sounds great. Thank you. So what are some of the benefits? And, first of all, you've got the single pane of glass. You can go right into SailPoint. you can do the provisioning. You can do the, joiner, mover, lever, all that provisioning, temporary badges, recertifications, and also reports. When you want to see what identity, what logical access they have, as well as what physical access they have, you can see it from one interface. You can run reports out of that one, out of the SailPoint interface. You can go to SailPoint, see who has all those access, and run reports out of there as well. So you don't have to go to two systems and try to match it up. Oh, here's this guy, he's got this access from a logical, and then also this access from a physical, and try to match those up in some kind of a, Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Able to see it all within one interface. That's a single pane of glass. It's all driven by security and compliance. You've got, termination. As I said earlier, it really becomes important when somebody's terminated for cause. If they're not terminated for cause, if they're just giving their notice and they're leaving, you still want to remove their access in a very timely manner. Absolutely. But if they're terminated for cause, that timely manner has got to be immediate. You don't want them to be able to get back into the systems or get back into any areas after they've been terminated. If they do come back, maybe to pick up their last paycheck or something, they've got to be escorted, but they're still not allowed just to access things without that escort. Excuse me. Recertification, very, very important again. Not only from a, who has what, somebody's moved through the company for 30 years and they've gotten all this extra additional access, but also maybe I've got badges outstanding that, I've got a couple of hundred badges outstanding that I'm not matched up to any identities, right? So recertification of things. You want to have analytics and be able to analyze data, right? I mean, you collect a lot of data, and now you want to be able to use analytics to do certain things with that data, right? Role-based authorization. So, as I said earlier, who can grant the access? Who's allowed to grant access to certain logical and physical systems? And that's really important that you limit that, because you don't want people granting access that have not been approved to grant that access. And then, of course, you've got privileged identity for certain physical access. You've got views, dashboards, operational data with tracking. So a lot of benefits and at the end of the day, you really want to save time, you really want to save money, and you want to be secure and in compliance. Those are really the four things, right? Security, compliance, saving time, and saving money. So again, so people can move forward with their, with their jobs. So I want to thank you all. I want to take some questions now and answer them for you.
Pat, I've got another question for you.
Great.
So Octavio asks, can Splan manage two or more badge systems at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. We have customers doing that, managing multiple badge systems at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's what I see as a big benefit here is even within the same badge manufacturer, you have different facilities on different versions of product that could be managed also. But let's say that you're moving as a company and you're acquiring other companies, and now all of a sudden you've inherited a new badge system. You can consolidate and bring both of those badge systems into the same connection and be able to integrate and manage those as well. So it's really an important idea here is that Splan helps with the normalization of how badge manufacturers approach badging, right? Because not all of them approach it the same. Some approach it where they're badge centric. Some approach it where it's an identity centric approach. And that translation is important to simplify things so that you can just get to an identity, see the access they have. And if they've got, many badges they're having, maybe one media or maybe multiple types of media, you can still see that and manage that as you go forward. So really good question, Octavio. Let us know if that answers it for you. Okay, Pat, do you see any questions?
Yes, we've got some questions that have come in about, what access control systems. I think that was asked during the meeting, right? Can we connect with all the major ones? And again, we can add access control systems as they come up. Another question had to do with cloud versus on-prem, and we do support both. We support both cloud and on-premise solutions. Recertification, right? So basically, what about recertification of badges? We've got a question there, which again is handled within the system. Another question came in about reporting. Can we see everything within SailPoint, all of the reports? And the answer there is yes. You have that single pane of glass, as I mentioned earlier. So we can look at a single identity and see what logical and physical access that they have. And you can do that all within the SailPoint interface. Segregation of duties. Can we address segregation of duties? And the answer there is yes. It can be set up in both SailPoint and also in Splan for segregation of duties when you are provisioning access. You've got that governance requirement that you want to basically make sure that somebody is not going to be out of compliance with regulations and also company policies as well. You've also got, the implementation question. And this is the question that comes up a lot. How long does it take to implement? How fast can we get to the return on investment? Well, the solution is, it is very streamlined from an integration standpoint. Of course, the timeline is going to depend on the number of access levels that you have, the different use cases, the different policies and things like that. But we've got a very managed process, a very, very disciplined process for setup that goes through, excuse me, understanding those use cases, setting it up, configuring the software so it's going to meet those use cases, doing all of the integrations and connectors, then training. It's really important, the training and different levels of training for different roles within the organization, and then of course going live. So it's a structured process, and it can happen very, very quickly. But again, it depends on the specific individual use cases, right?
Here you
And
go.
then
Pat, I
go
have
ahead.
another one that came in from Christian.
Yeah.
He asks if what is the support around multi-tenant and multi-site?
Multi-tenant and multi-site.
So I can take it from a SailPoint standpoint.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
from a SailPoint standpoint, we have two products. We have one which is a single tenant. That's called Identity IQ, I mentioned earlier. And then when I showed you the Atlas platform, this is where you see SailPoint putting in the majority of our investment is in a multi-tenant solution. So that meaning we have chosen to place it in the cloud. We take advantage of AWS. So it's an Amazon implementation, and it is multi-tenant. Now, when you set up your tenant and you're getting that SailPoint instance up and going, you have availability zones and data harboring laws that you need to look at. And so depending upon where your badge system or where your enterprise applications reside, now some of them could reside in the cloud, right? And so in that case, it would be cloud to cloud type of connectivity. But if you have on-premise, then if it's on-premise, then you're going to be having to deal with multiple sites coming into the cloud environment versus if they're not spread across multiple locations. But that's up to you. And in an architecture discussion, that's kind of where you would plan and lay things out, kind of along the lines of the implementation discussion that Pat was talking about. So Pat, you want to talk specifically about the Splan servers capabilities there?
Sure. So we support multi-tenant and multi-site, and it's built into the Splan platform, right? All the way from the beginning. And we support this hand in hand with the SailPoint solution. So we support it as well. Other questions?
Okay, let's see. Yes, we got another one. Nick asked, sorry, joined late. Don't know if this was already answered. What changes are required in SailPoint? Do fields or other data need to be changed, added, or preloaded? So excellent question, Nick. And I'll take a stab at this and you can add on if you'd like, Pat. So when you set up a connector or in Identity Security Cloud, we call that a source because it's a source of information for an identity. It's either authoritative or it can be a target system that we're bringing information in. We're able to, with each of those sources when they're connected, we're able to define the schema. And so when we're talking about a web services connector that Splan has created specifically to integrate with SailPoint, that connector is going to handle the schema changes that are going to be necessary. Because by default, for example, we aren't going to have schema entries around, like a badge ID, or the access levels. So those types of things will, yes, be extended for you. And it's part of the integration work that is done for you. It's part of the certification process that Splan has gone through with SailPoint to make sure that that those additional schema changes, for example, will happen in a seamless way for you to have the badge systems now integrated. Pat, anything you wanted to add there?
Just that all those, all the schema changes will be loaded as part of the integration. It's a simple process. Our professional services team will take care of all of that for the customer.
The other thing I would add here too is that SailPoint wants to encourage customers to load the minimal information. So if there's no business reason from a badge system to pull over PII, don't do that. Like, don't bring over photos. That's considered PII. We don't need to do that in this system. If there's other sensitive information, that should remain in the badge system, doesn't need to come over. It's about the access. And how is that access being managed? Are we staying to a least privileged model and not having that access creep that tends to happen for organizations? So we definitely want to try to adhere to that as a best practice.
And I agree with that 100%, Brent, because we've got customers all over the world that have many different privacy regulations. For our solutions, we are GDPR compliant, so we don't want data that we don't need. Okay, and we don't want any privacy data that that we really don't want. When we work with healthcare, we pull information from electronic health record solution. We don't pull all the data. We just want those certain fields that are required to execute the transaction. And I agree with 100%. We've got to be really careful on compliance and privacy. And Splan does that with our customers. So again, transferring only the data that you need.
All right, I have another one for you. Nick asked, do you have any documentation that I can share with my SharePoint team to get their input? So I'm going to direct that to you, Pat.
We can get documentation out to you, yes.
Okay, fantastic. I've got another one. This looks like I'll take it. It's from Scott. Is SailPoint pulling the information from AD? Is the specific OU attribute does not exist in AD? Do we create the level in SailPoint or AD? So the answer to that is, so first off, yes, SailPoint does integrate. We have out-of-the-box connectors. AD is very ubiquitous out there. And of course, we provide integration with it. Now, if that has been extended, you're going to be able to see the schema extensions there as well as part of the integration that we provide. Same thing with Azure AD or Entra ID now. We do integrate and provide out-of-the-box integration there as well. So fully supported there. How the badge system comes in, I think we need to look at that on a case-by-case basis because some badge systems will choose to integrate directly with Active Directory as opposed to making their own objects that would show up or to their own permissions. So in this case, the permissions are going to be group security group membership that would be showing up and governing the access into the badge system. So Pat, anything you wanted to add there with AD questions?
No, again, when we bring in information, and we're not really going to need to bring in the information for provisioning, right? We connect with Active Directory generally so that people have authorization for sign on, or when somebody shows up to see somebody and they say, I'm here to see an employee, we can authenticate that that employee is actually part of the, part of the team. And I just got asked this question yesterday, we've got all these fields in Active Directory. Do we need to import all of them? Heck no. We only want those fields that are going to be really pertinent to the use cases that we're executing.
Okay, let's see. I do not see, looks like we've got them all answered that I see. Give them just another minute here to see if any other questions come in. So Pat, I see the folks on, so any sales contacts here where folks could reach out for more information, or if they want a demo, is that something that Splan can provide?
Yeah, if you're seeing my screen, I've got the map up. Where we've got multiple sales folks. We've got on the East Coast, we've got Jamie Levine. Southeast, we've got David Holm. We've got in the Central, Chris Guerin, and then I handle the West and also Canada and a number of accounts over in EMEA as well. So that is up on the screen, all the contact information.
Okay, fantastic. And so folks would reach out to the appropriate salesperson for a demo?
Well, or they could just send us a request to sales@splan.com. If they send a request to sales@splan.com, we identify their location. We'll make sure it gets to the right person within Splan. So sales@splan.com is probably the easiest email to send things to.
Fantastic. Okay, at this
And
time, I
we'd be
don't see
very,
any.
very happy to set up the demos for folks. I mean, we want to, as a call to action, because there's multiple or two different, versions of the SailPoint solution, we didn't want a demo today. What we wanted to do was say, okay, if you're interested in a demo, we're going to need to do a little bit of discovery, find out what version you're on, if you're on, or if you're moving to a different version, so we can set up the correct demo for you. That's why we decided not to demo today, because there are two different versions. Customers going to have either version, and we only want to make sure we show you what's really appropriate for your organization. But absolutely, we'd love to do a presentation demo for you. And just as I said, please send a request to sales@splan.com, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Pat. One other thing I think that's worth mentioning is, Pat, you're experts in this area. You're going to be able to help them with assessing their badging needs, because they might not be sure about, exactly what their needs are. So being able to ask the right questions, that they can have exposure to those questions and start to do the research in their organization can be, really helpful. Things like how effectively do you handle deactivation of a badge for terminated employees? Is it a fire drill every time, or do you guys have a set process to do that? Depending upon your level of sensitivity in your facilities, you can be less mature or very mature in that space. And so that's part of the questions and what you can go through. Being sure to ask things like, what safeguards do you guarantee the right team approves access, so that that access isn't just being granted because somebody's a friend with somebody in the badging office, and that you have full audit of that. So all of those sorts of things, and that deeper assessment is something that that Pat and the Splan sales teams can help you with, assessing your maturity and what you need to take your program to the next level as well. So with that, Pat, do you see any other questions?
I don't see any other questions that have come up, but again, we'd love to entertain questions. If you have any additional questions, please send them over to us. If you want a demo, we'd love to demo the software to you, the integration. And so I want to also just take a moment and thank everybody for their time today. And I hope this has been a really beneficial, investment of your time. So thanks again very much. And we look forward to talking with you in the future.
All right, let's call it a wrap. I don't see any other questions. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Brent, as
Welcome.
well.
Glad to do it.